Bienvenidas, bienvenidos a este espacio académico donde tenemos la entrevista de nuestra invitada, la profesora Kim Schildkamp, que viene y nos visita de la Universidad de Twente en Holanda. La entrevista será en inglés, podremos escucharla con una traducción y nos introduciremos en un espacio importante que tiene que ver con el desarrollo profesional docente, un tema de suma interés para la Universidad Andina, especialmente para el área académica de educación. Bienvenida, doctora Schildkamp.
Muchas gracias.
Today we have the honor to have you here. You are a full professor at the Faculty of Behavioral Management and Social Sciences at the University of Twente in the Netherlands and chair of the Department of Teacher Development. Your research focuses on data-informed decision-making, the data team intervention, and the integration of AI in education. Welcome. Bienvenida.
Thank you.
So, in your presentations and in your research, in your publications, you emphasize a core lesson. Educators should start with a purpose and not with an idea. In the context of Latin America, in Ecuador, for example, in our schools and universities where accountability can sometimes overshadow pedagogy, how can institutions shift their focus so that data use is for genuine school improvement rather than just compliance?
I think that's a very good question, and a question that we work on almost every day with the schools that we work with. And I think I would like to start with a little anecdote. Many years ago, I was involved in a project for the European Union on supporting schools in the use of data. Now, I'm a little bit of a data nerd, I have to confess. So I thought we would start working with schools and we would make a data inventory. So let's sit together with teachers and school leaders and look at all the data that they have available, which is a lot that we do know. So we sat down together with teachers and school leaders and it did not work. There was a lot of resistance and teachers really did not like it. And in the project team, we were trying to figure out why it was not working. And then one of the teachers said to me, well, Kim, I became a teacher to work with students, not to work with data. And I think that was one of the comments for me that really turned it around. And then we thought of, okay, how can we then actually support schools in the use of data? And it is by not starting with data. Now we start very differently with schools. We sit down with teachers and school leaders. We talk about their schools. We talk about their classrooms. We talk about their students. We talk about what makes them happy. And we also talk about the problems that they are facing. And that is a really good starting point, because when we have some problems that they are facing, then we can talk about how data can help them in solving their problems. And that is a really good starting point. And sometimes in an accountability system, data from national assessments can point you to a certain problem. For example, the national assessment results can show you that mathematics is not going well. And that then could be a starting point for the use of data. And then it starts with the question, why? Mm-hmm. Why are our results not the way we want them to be? And then we can start using data to figure out how to solve this problem. So it's not about starting with data, but it's starting with a dialogue, and it's starting to talk about what are our goals, what goals are we achieving, and what goals are we not achieving.
Wonderful. Here at the Universidad Andina, we are very interested in professional learning communities, professional learning networks, as a way to strengthen teacher professional development. Your data team intervention uses a rigorous 8-step procedure to solve educational problems. Could you please elaborate on how these teams function and what are the main enablers and barriers teachers face when trying to build data literacy together?
Yes, I think our data team intervention is basically another example of a data use cycle. And what all the data use cycles have in common is that they should start with a purpose or a goal, as we just discussed. Then if we have a certain goal that we're not achieving, we need to figure out why. And that means that we need to collect data on why we are not achieving that goal. These data need to be analyzed, interpreted, and then hopefully we are finding out why we are not reaching our goals, and we can implement actions based on data to solve our problem and reach our goals. And that's something that we need to evaluate. So it's basically a data use cycle. What we did here is we made it very practical for schools. So we support schools in the use of data. We work with them together. Teachers are not researchers. They should not be researchers, but they should be able to use data to figure out what is going on in their classrooms and with their students. And that is something that we developed a lot of support around. We work with a coach. We have an extensive manual. We also investigated the enablers and barriers because this is very important. It's not easy. I wish it was. It is important. We have a lot of evidence that it can lead to increased school improvement, increased student achievement, but it requires a lot from schools to do this. So over the years, we have been investigating what it requires. And there's a whole list of enablers and barriers. I think too much to go over now. But if I have to pick one of the most important enablers or barriers, that would be school leadership. It really requires a lot from the school leader. We've worked with a lot of schools in different countries around the world. And we see that school leaders can really make or break a data team. They need to be supportive. They need to have a vision. They need to facilitate the work of data teams. It requires time. Sometimes it can be a little bit scary because you're looking at data and you need to relate it to your own functioning. And that's difficult. I mean, I'm a teacher myself. If my students are failing, my first natural reaction is blame it on the students. They have been partying too hard. They have not been studying for my test. But then I also need to look at my own functioning. So what do the data tell me? I see that they did not understand certain assignments that I gave them. So maybe I need to revisit how I taught these assignments. And that's a difficult step and it can be scary. And it's also why you need the school leader to support you in this. So there's a lot of work for the school leader there. But it's not only the formal school leader. We also found that shared leadership is very important. So it requires a lot of leadership in the school to successfully work with data. But this is leadership behavior from the principal, the vice principal, but also teacher leaders, for example. One of the aspects is being a role model when it comes to using data. And of course, the school leader needs to be a role model and use data him or herself. But colleagues, other teachers can also use data and be a role model for their other teachers in the school.
Wonderful. Also, an important aspect of your work is regarding moving students from being passive data sources to active data users. You have piloted interventions using a whole classroom approach where students work in PLCs to analyze their own learning environments. How does this participation impact their democratic attitudes, and what can we learn from this empower university to empower university students as well?
Yeah. I'm very excited about this project. We started it about 2 years ago. Over the past few decades, I'm feeling old now, we have been studying data use by teachers, data use by school leaders, where students are always passive data sources instead of active participants. And then a couple of years ago, we started thinking about, okay, but how can we change this? Because students are the most important stakeholders in our educational system. So should we not involve them in the use of data? At the same time, a lot of reports came out, for example, from the OECD, talking about a lack of student participation, a lack of citizenship in schools all over the world. So we thought maybe we can combine these two things. Talk about student participation, student decision-making, citizenship, and on the other hand, data use. So what happens if we combine them? So we started doing a pilot in Norway, where I was a visiting professor at that time, where we worked with schools who were really enthusiastic about this idea, about including all students, so not the usual suspects. Like in any school, you have the president of the student council, the student council members, students that are willing, but these are the students that are already participating, that are already actively engaged, and we wanted to involve all of the students. And this is something that we did. I have to say here it's a pilot, so I cannot say with 100% confidence that it works, but the results of the pilot are very positive. We involve all students in the classroom, and they work on a topic that they choose. And in Norway, we use a student survey as a starting point. In every school, every year, students fill out a survey on things such as classroom climate, well-being, safety, bullying, all these important topics. And students look at the results of the survey, also work on their data literacy skills because they need to analyze the survey. Then they identify a problem, which can be problems with classroom climate or bullying or safety. And then they collect data to figure out what is going on, what causes that problem. So they ask that important why question. And students said to us, it really felt like a democracy doing it this way, because we are actually involved in trying to improve our classroom, trying to improve our school. And they also said, we finally understand why we fill out this stupid survey every year, because normally we fill it in and nothing ever happens. But now we are the ones who decide what happens with the survey, and we see actual changes. And the nice thing is that it's changes made by the teachers. So they often need to improve, for example, certain instructional strategies, but it's also changes that students make themselves. For example, when it comes to classroom climate, students were saying, well, I'm sorry, but we sometimes have ants in our pants. So we are very restless, and now we realize we need to be more quiet. So it's student behavior and teacher behavior that changes in sort of a mini democracy. So it really, really contributes to citizenship, to agency, to ownership as well. We've done this in primary education and secondary education, in Norway, also in the Netherlands now, and we're starting with a pilot in Australia. We haven't done it at the university level yet, but I imagine it could work in similar ways. At my university, we also work with surveys. We also work with student conversations, and I always find these much more powerful, because then you can actually engage in a dialogue about what is going well and what is not going well. So I really think that this could be done at all levels of the system and can really contribute to student ownership, participation, citizenship.
Wonderful. Sustainable education innovation is a major challenge. You are currently the project leader of NPulse, a Dutch national program focusing on professional development in data and AI literacy. As higher education institutions like ours prepare for the future, what foundational AI and data literacy skills must we prioritize to ensure that our educational innovations are sustainable over time?
That's a very complex question. Do you have time to spend on another PhD project, perhaps?
Of course.
No, it's one of the things that we're working on within my NPulse project. The first thing that we did was identifying what, for example, AI literacy is. Because everybody talks about AI and how important AI literacy is, but sometimes it feels like we're talking about slightly different things. The first question is, what kind of AI are we talking about? AI has become more or less synonymous with ChatGPT, Copilot, so the Gen AI, but there's more AI than just Gen AI. So we thought it's really important to be specific about AI literacy and what it is. So we conducted a study on AI literacy. We did a literature review and also a field exploration. And we developed a framework for AI literacy, which basically consists of certain knowledge indicators, certain skill indicators, attitudes, and ethics. And there's also a pedagogical component for education. And when we were working on the framework, we very soon discovered that we could not develop a framework that will work for every context and for every program, because data literacy and AI literacy will look very different if you're educating people to become a mechanic or if you're educating people to become a doctor, because then you need different skills and different knowledge. So what we did is we developed a general framework with a lot of general indicators, such as, okay, you have to be aware that there is bias in AI. You have to also know when not to use AI, for example. So these kind of indicators are in our framework, which is available open access in English as well. And we said it's important for the different school organizations, educational systems, programs to take this framework as a starting point and then adjust it to their own context. So if you have a mechanics program, look at the future labor market and decide how to adjust it so that it's fitting with the future labor market. If you're educating people to become a teacher, like in my field, then we need to look at what does this mean for future teachers. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of work there for us to do. What makes it even more complex is that the field of AI is evolving so quickly. So we don't really know what it will look like 10 years from now. So I think at the university level, it's very important to work closely together with the labor market and really keep each other in the loop, what is happening and what is needed, and then try to adjust to that.
Wonderful. To conclude, you'll be working tomorrow with our PhD students.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely. You will have these doctoral seminars where you will provide feedback also for you to understand and learn what kind of research interests are our PhD students working on, and so that they can also receive feedback from your vision. And what has been so far the impression of that you've had of our university, and what kind of collaborations do you may see in the future?
I've been very impressed with what I've seen here. I especially like the international focus and the focus of collaboration between different countries, also learning from each other, respecting each other. I had the pleasure of witnessing a presentation of one of your PhD students yesterday. I was very impressed with the quality of his work. And as we talked about yesterday as well, especially in my field, data use, a lot of studies are conducted in Europe, in the US, and so on. And I think we need much more evidence from Latin America. So I'm really pleased that you have these PhD programs now so that we'll have access to this kinds of evidence. But I also see a lot of similarities. That was also very interesting for me. Like some of the struggles that we talked about yesterday, such as that there is a big misconception here that data equals quantitative data, that it equals numbers. That is something that we are still fighting in Europe and the US as well. So I think it's really nice that we do more in this area, that we have access to each other's knowledge, and that we can learn from each other in the future.
Sure. Thank you very much, Kim. This is your house. We hope you come back again and visit Ecuador and our university. Thank you very much.